Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lookout. Today's January 22nd, and we are covering the Hughes Fire in Castaic. This fire's been burning for about 6 hours. Took off quickly, kind of before noon, a little bit before noon. It's 9,000 acres now. We just got a new perimeter, so we're going to take a look at that. We're going to kind of take a look at where the fire might go and talk about what's happened so far today. Wins and losses in the firefight. Sorry I dropped off earlier. I was doing a live stream and I think my hard drive got full and things got glitchy. So cleared out a bunch of old stuff and hopefully we can avoid such problems. Okay, so real quick, where's Castaic? Castaic is at the bottom of the Grapevine between LA and Bakersfield. And turn on my magic mouse here. Yep, here's the Grapevine, and you come down a hill, and Magic Mountain pretty much is how most people know Castaic. It's where you turn to go to the coast off of I-5. So the kind of bright red here is where the fire was at about 1:30, and then it jumped across Lake Hughes Road. When we were looking at it earlier today, we were wondering if it would jump the lake. We were talking about how it wasn't likely to jump the lake just because we don't have long range spotting usually in grass, and right on the other side of the lake was a lot of grass. And we were also talking about how this fire is bumped into a fire that burned in about 7 years ago out in this area here. And so they had a huge number of air tankers. I don't know if I've ever seen a fire that had so many air tankers on it this afternoon. And they painted this ridge here. So once it kind of crossed Lake Hughes Road on a ridge, then it was kind of off to the next ridge. They painted that with retardant, and through the afternoon they kept the fire pretty much on the proper side of the ridge. Now that it's dark, they can't really fly any of the fixed-wing tankers. They can fly helicopters. And so we don't really know the progress of bulldozer work on this ridge. If, this being Southern California, if you look at just about any ridge out here, it's had a bulldozer on it before. And so they'll have a harder time holding things without the air tankers overnight. The winds are supposed to stay steady and increase. They do have a water source and helicopters here, so it's not out of the question they're going to hold it on this line. This mapping here is from within the last half hour or so. And so you can see that the fire didn't cross the lake yet. It came all the way down to this Castaic Lagoon. And it's kind of now down into this kind of dry wash downstream of Castaic Lagoon. But as of that, pretty recently, there hadn't been any fire into structures or into Castaic proper. And there are things in here, drivable access, etc., that makes this a great spot to pick up this part of the fire. Down here, we've got pavement and big barren areas, and we've got these irrigated ball fields. So this whole area here is pretty decent, what we call catcher's mitt for a fire. And also the freeway. So the things that are problems are, rolling tumbleweeds, other wind-driven debris that could spot the fire across the freeway. Also, right when this imagery was getting captured, the fire had crossed this Charlie Canyon Road and run up into Wayside Canyon Road and slopped over the ridge here. So this isn't great news just because these canyons are generally aligned with where the prevailing winds are right now, and we've got kind of continuous wildland vegetation down to the wash. But this wash in general makes a good kind of interruption in the fuels that buys us some advantage. If it does get across into here, into this neighborhood, obviously bad news. And so the next hour or so, really this evening, trying to keep the fire from crossing the wash and crossing I-5 is what it's all about. On the north side of here, the winds are favorable to contain it from moving farther hard to the north. Right, it's difficult ground here for firefighting, but we've got ridges that run parallel here to the prevailing winds, and the fire with the prevailing winds is blowing away from the more wildland country out here. So I would expect that this fire is going to not cross this ridge here, kind of to the east of Naylor Place. If you look at where the fire is spread since 1 o'clock on the heel, as we call it, no new spread since 1 o'clock on the heel of the fire, and they were running helicopters, and so helicopters work really well on the heel because you don't have a bunch of smoke blocking the visibility. So they've had pretty unobstructed visibility on the heel of the fire from the get-go because the winds are blowing this way. So you see that the fire really hasn't grown much since 1 on this north side, both because the wind's blowing it away from there and because they've had helicopters working there, a lot of them. And that's one of the things that happens during an episode like this where there's only one fire going. When we have problems is when you've got multiple fires going and or the winds are too high for aircraft. But today it's been windy, but they've had unlimited access to pretty much all the aircraft in the country because nothing else is burning right now. And so they had an enormous amount of aircraft on this today. And they have scoopers that can pull right out of these lakes. Anyway, so and also now that this is burned down to the lake here, it's less likely we're going to get a run that's going to spot the fire across the lake over on this side. So the action is all kind of right in this area this evening. Let's pull up and look at a little at the fire history here. So this area here burned in 2022 across the lake. And this area down at the bottom of the canyon here burned in 2020 and in 2022. So what that means is there's plenty of grass in here to carry a fire, but with grass we've got a lot less ember production. The greatest ember production we get is in kind of heavy decadent brush. And so the fact that we've got these areas down here that are mainly grass, that's a benefit. This area over here, the north, burned in 2021. So grass fires are easier for us to contain just because even though the fire moves quickly, all the retardant gets down on the ground, soaks it. And also we don't have that much ember production. If we look back a little farther, this whole area here we talked about burned in the Charlie fire in 2018. So it has 5-year-old and brush in it, but it's a lot lower fuel load. So if you look at where this fire stopped, basically the fire we're having today, it's kind of hung up there on the ridge that was where they used to stop the Charlie fire here in 2018. So all in all, it's not a terrible situation in that it's a 9,000 acre fire, but you've only really got one super active flank that is a threat with the current winds. The current winds and the forecast winds are going to keep pushing this part of the fire into the lake, and they've got some time for it to flank around and to pick it up before this side flanks around. So even though the fire is only at 5% containment right now for a 9,000 acre fire, it's actually contained all the way around here by the lake. And so right off the bat, that's 25 or 30% contained of the total perimeter of the fire. This side is not contained, but it's not in alignment right now to have a big run of the fire around here. And the flanks are where we pick up fires. It's really difficult in heavy fuels to stop the head of the fire, like this end here. But the flanks often are where we work, and we work our way around the flanks until we can get up and pinch off the head of the fire. So we'll see what happens here. And they've got good access down in the bottom here. They've got an incredible amount of resources because it's Southern California. And if they can keep it from crossing this wash and I-5, it's really good news, given that the winds are supposed to strengthen over the next 12 hours and continue blowing for a while. If the fire does get across I-5, it's got a long ways to run. We don't have a lot of fire history of recent fire history out in here to kind of to slow it down. And as we've been talking about, even with fire scars that are, you know, just even a year or two old, the wet winter from last year created a lot of grass, and that because we haven't had any rain this year, the grass is all brown and can carry a fire. So if the fire does cross here, we'll just kind of take the wind's eye view, meaning this is the direction, this is what the wind sees right now and what the fire sees ahead of it. And so conceivably, if the fire does get across here, and this neighborhood is newer, and newer neighborhoods generally hold up better than older neighborhoods to fire intrusion. You know, that's one of the things that made the Altadena fire so destructive. Is older housing is built with less robust construction. Let's just see if we can figure out how old this subdivision is. Built in the 1990s. So 30-year-old housing. It's not as bad off as 50-year-old housing, but it's not as good. Since 2007, I believe, there's been a new building code that's been a lot stricter on the building materials. So it looks like a lot of this kind of predates that fire-resistant construction. Looks like we do have like some sort of quarry or something over here. That's interesting. It looks like that looks kind of like someone started to build a subdivision and it never got built. Well, we go back to 2009. Interesting. 2008 started building subdivision, and I wonder why it never got built. Looks like they're starting to build it now. Damn that recession. Well, anyway, we'll keep an eye on it. If they hold it tonight from crossing I-5, it's probably not going to be a threat to areas out to the west. So we'll check it in the morning, and we'll probably give you a broadcast in the morning. But as we said, if it does get across I-5 here and established, then there's a lot of terrain out ahead of it with the winds that we have as far as taking it out and burning across this ridge. I don't know this geography here, but if we look at the fire history here, there's been some large fires here. The Simi fire, they burned in October of 2003. You know, previous fires give you an idea of the potential of a future fire, right? So the Simi fire from 2003. Let's see. It was, so let's see if I can put an outline around it. You have to watch me work for a minute while the computer thinks about it. All right, got it. All right, so just looking at our fire history here. We've got this fire here in red, and these are other fires that have happened in the last 20 years in the blue here. The ranch fire was 60,000 acres in 2007, and the Simi fire was 2003. So what that tells us is we got this continuous bed of like 21-year-old vegetation along this whole range here. And so if the fire were to become established, or just if a future fire gets established over there, it's kind of poor access. It's aligned with kind of Santa Ana kind of offshore winds, east winds, and it's a hard place to fight fire. And so when you see a big fire like that, it usually tells you this is a hard place to fight fire. Just gives you an idea of the potential of this. So I'm going to jump to something else here real quick. Talk about just looking at the winds. We've got our fire, and it's now kind of down into here. This perimeter is the one from earlier in the day. Okay, now they got it updated. I was kind of just taking shots with, like we like to do off the webcams here. But this is the weather. This is the weather, wind speed 24 hours out, 20 mile an hour, steady winds. Right now it's telling us that our winds are kind of like about 30 miles an hour coming out of the northeast. And 12 hours from now, they're going to be more out of the east. So that's still pretty good news for this flank of the fire. In that, like we said before, it's hard for the fire to burn across the wind. Fire wants to go downwind. So right now, the prevailing wind is blowing it into areas that are places we can fight fire with good access and some like reduced fuels along the edge. And so we're not going to see huge runs. We're not going to see the fire. Like if you look at how far the fire burned today, like you're never going to see a fire run, like 5 miles downwind and then like run 5 miles across the wind. So all in all, this is real typical for a wind-driven fire. All right, so I wanted to show you guys something real quick. My wife is a ceramicist, and she just cranked out some really killer mugs, lookout mugs. And so if you want to support the Lookout, and you want to support my wife's pottery business, and by extension, our whole enterprise, get yourself a Lookout coffee mug, and she'll make some more. But I really like these, and they're nice and big. All right. And also, while you're there, if you want to check out other stuff we got some nice stickers. We got a whole bunch of different hats. I'm wearing the kind of brown and tan one right now. We got the camo ones. Those are ways you can support us. I'm working on some axes. I haven't got them posted yet. I got my handles on, but I do some blacksmithing, and that's another way that you guys can support the Lookout down the road. So you can get to that on the Lookout website. While you're there, check out our archive. We've got all kinds of stuff, fire education. We've done like 250 different posts on different fires, tactics, firing operations, bulldozers. It's kind of there's a huge amount of information here, and we throw up summaries from our live streams too. All right, and we got Maxwell Lucas, new Lookout member. You can join the Lookout, and members get we got some members only videos, and then we're also doing a thing where our $50 members get a monthly members only live stream. So I'm just going to refresh real quick, and then we're going to wrap it up and get on with our lives. Okay, so to wrap up, the Hughes Fire is burning on the Angeles National Forest near Lake Castaic Lake. Started midday today. It's driven by strong northeast winds, but also incredibly low humidity. There's a kind of extraordinary thing about this particular storm is that the humidity levels are kind of setting records for dryness across Southern California, like down in the single digit humidity. So it's really hard on living plants, but it's also just the fuels are incredibly dry. No rain and record low humidity. Fire burned downwind vigorously and reached the lake quickly. It hasn't spread much in the areas that are the lighter red since 1:30, which is when this first image was taken. It's made its biggest run parallel to Lake Hughes Road on both sides of the road. Aircraft worked hard and kept it out of the Charlie burn scar from 2017 or 18. Fire is now down to Castaic. As of 6 p.m., it had not burned any structures in Castaic. It was hidden kind of barren areas around the Castaic Lagoon and the dam. It's getting down into the dry river bottom. It run up and crossed Charlie Canyon Road. And so the kind of most challenging part of the fire right now is kind of right north of Sulphur Springs, 99 Oaks. And the forecast is for the winds to increase through the night, become more easterly. The threat is if the fire crosses I-5. If it does not cross I-5 tonight, likely the westward thread of the fire will be done, and it'll take them a while to get around the backcountry sides of it. Aircraft and helicopters have been a huge part of the firefight, and the difference between this fire and the fires we had last week, 2 weeks ago, lower winds are allowing air attack to operate and function. That's the update for the fire. I just wanted to talk, since I've got you on here and I'm a geographer, I want to talk a little bit about these lakes. These lakes are part of the California State Water Project. And so there's canals that start at the Delta up here, San Francisco Bay Delta, which is where the San Joaquin River and the Sacramento River come together, right outside of Sacramento and Stockton. Got the these kind of plumbing fixtures here, like the Clifton Court Forebay, where they take Delta water and they divert it into the California Aqueduct, or the, I don't know, it's not the, I haven't got the name quite right, but then there's this enormous system of pumps and power lines and everything. The California Department of Water Resources is the biggest energy user in the state. And so when you hear talk about like Northern California water going to Southern California, basically all the Northern California water comes down the Sacramento River here, and then it goes through this crazy maze called the Delta. And when they turn on these big pumps, it's so flat out there that sometimes these rivers run backwards. And there's salmon that migrate from the Sacramento River out through the Golden Gate, and there's Delta smelt. And so when they turn on these big pumps, it screws up the flow. It makes the Delta's a really wacky place with all, you see what's going on here. And when they turn on the pumps, sometimes these rivers actually flow backwards, and little baby salmon get lost and smelt get lost, and they get ground up in these enormous pumps that are down here that lift the water out of the Delta and put it into these canals. And then once you got the canals, you see these as you drive down I-5, and they go all the way down to Southern California. And along the way, they get pumped. Sometimes they get lifted up a little, in elevation. You get down here by Los Banos and Santanella, and there's actually this San Luis Reservoir, and it pumps water from the O'Neill Forebay up into this area that's not actually a natural lake at all. And it stores it there, and they can generate power by dropping it back down, and then it keeps going, and it goes all the way down to Bakersfield, right? Like, you're still following it. Gets a little smaller as you go, but keeps going. That's Sacramento River water, and Feather River water goes all the way down here. Goes through a mountain, gets pumped, and then down here on the north side of the Grapevine, it gets pumped with these enormous pumps up over the mountains. And I can't remember exactly where it pops out, but one of the places it pops out, I think Gorman, here it picks up again. Here it pumps all the way up to here. And then it splits here, and it goes. Some goes out to San Bernardino, some goes to LA, and keeps going. They drop it into these lakes. They drop it from lake to lake and pump it through the mountains some more, and it pops out here in Castaic. So all this water they're scooping up out of Castaic Lake is mainly coming from the Feather River where I live. So anyway, that's the story. And the lakes have a lot of water in them right now, so don't let Trump tell you that the reason that the fires are burning is because Gavin Newsom took some dams out on the Klamath, because that's horseshit. So there you go. There's your water. There's your fire. We'll give you an update as we can tomorrow morning. Good luck, everyone. Thanks for supporting.